All right, with that, let's move forward. It's our session 3, ladies and gentlemen. It's all about connecting the dots. We're looking at the global payment trends and the India story. I would welcome on stage, ladies and gentlemen, with a huge round of applause, joining us is former CEO of Axis Bank, Ms. Shikha Sharma, and the Vice President and General Manager of Global Payments, Google, Mr. Stavan Parikh. A huge round of applause as they join us on stage. Thank you. I would request our dignitaries to take the seats based on the names on the screen. So, sir, I would request you to go to the right. Yes, thank you so much. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Is that on? Yeah, hi. So it's such a pleasure to chat with you today, Stavan. Stavan is the right way to pronounce it, right? So very welcome to the session here, and we are hoping to hear from you, given your role as VP and General Manager Payments for Google. I'm sure there's a lot you're going to share with us about what the exciting stuff that's happening in that space. But before we go there, I thought I'll ask you something about you yourself. I believe you grew up in India, and you spent your childhood years here. So anything you want to tell us about that, and what you miss about India, if anything?
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. Yeah, I grew up in India, in Ahmedabad, and in 12th grade, my parents moved to the US, so that's when I moved back there, finished my schooling, finished my college. But most of my extended family is here. My wife's parents are here. Friends are in Ahmedabad. Some of them actually are in Bombay as well. I should call it Mumbai now. So it's always a pleasure to come back. If I had to say what I miss the most beyond the people is probably the food.
So what's your favorite food?
Oh, that's like picking your favorite child. I'm not sure I can pick a specific one, but every time I come back to India, probably street food. Pick my choice of street food is probably what I would start with.
And do you have a favorite Bollywood movie?
I'm not sure favorite Bollywood movie. I enjoy Bollywood movies, though lately I don't think I've seen a particular one that kind of sticks out. Probably the last one that I really enjoyed was probably 12th Fail, but it's been a while since. Okay. It's still, I think, a couple of years old now. So.
Okay. Oh, good, thank you. So with that, let me get back to what I'm sure everybody is hoping to learn from you today about payments. You've been with Google 18 years, and you have a privileged lens to what's happening in that space. So over the last decade, what do you think have been the big inflection points as far as payments is concerned?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there is obviously I've been in payments for more than a decade, and there's a lot that has happened in the last 10 years. I'd say it starts with the fact that digital commerce has really started to grow, right? And as digital commerce has grown, as people have gotten more comfortable, it has become more and more important to enable new forms of payments and new ways to pay to make that ecosystem actually work. I think that, along with, you think about, one, just the device growth and ecosystem growth. When we think about smartphones really coming about, NFC, point-of-sale devices, QR codes, digital wallets, all of them have really come together to enable digital commerce at scale, which I think has been one key real inflection point. I would say the other has been just access to digital payments, right? So India has done a great job with UPI, with providing access, building out real-time payment network rails. This is now happening globally at scale. And that really has made it possible for anybody to be able to access digital payments, which I think has been a big kind of accelerator of this space.
So actually, you kind of hinted at it already, but when one thinks of Google, then payments is not the first thing you think about. You think about search and Gemini and all the cool stuff. So why is payments important to Google?
Why is payments important to Google?
And how do you monetize payments?
Okay, I'll start with the first one first. So if you look at Google's mission, right, it is to make information universally accessible and useful, right? One piece of the information that we want to make accessible is commercial information and to enable commercial journeys. And when we think about enabling commercial journeys, payments is a key part of that enablement, right? So that's really where payments kind of becomes a key part of Google's journey, right? Our goal is to make payments really simple, safe, and easy for people to use. Make it so that people can save money while they are actually paying.
Right.
And as we look at that goal, it's really about just enabling that digital commerce ecosystem, which plays a key role there. When we think about monetization, right, I think everybody knows like Google monetizes through ads, right? And to do that, it builds a lot of products that enables the digital ecosystem. So again, when we think about digital commerce, the fact that you can make payments really easily, you can build trust with users, and grow that ecosystem helps the overall kind of commercial ecosystem grow. And when that happens, when the online ecosystem gets better, there is a direct way for Google to end up kind of benefiting from that as merchants kind of become more successful and they end up spending on ads. So at the global level, that's really the monetization story. In India, the monetization story is different, right? I think with GPay India specifically, I think we have a few different ways we are looking at monetizing. One is on the core payments journeys themselves, with things like bill payments and others that are monetized both for the partners and for users. The second is probably in connecting merchants to the users. Like this is more like the ads model, but whether it's vouchers, whether it's rewards, or ads, right? That's another kind of benefit to the merchants and the users that we can provide, and then we can monetize that. The third is access to financial services, like things like credit, is another space where, as we can connect the user with the partners, I think there is an opportunity to monetize. So there are a few different models in GPay India that are different from the global. And this is also a space where really I think there is an opportunity for us to figure out what the right financial model is. I think it's not a fully solved problem. So this is a continuous area that we are looking at investing and figuring out with the help of the ecosystem partners and regulators as well. So that's a work in progress. But that's how I think about payments and its importance to Google.
So one other question there is, given that payments is in a sense a very sensitive area, one because of the whole issue of frauds, mules, and also data privacy. There is the flip side to privacy, of course, that the same data can actually be used to provide greater inclusion of services to many of your consumers. So how do you think about governance around those kinds of issues, whether it's security and fraud, or whether it's data privacy and use of data? And do you have global principles around that, or do you kind of customize depending upon the local regulations?
Okay. Yeah, I think, so it's data privacy clearly is the center of almost everything Google does, right? Like I think most of our products start with the perspective that we want to give users complete control of their data. We want to make sure that users are comfortable and consent to every use of their data. Payments especially is a space where this is a very, very sensitive piece of data, and we want to make sure that any product that we build ensure it protects that data. So we start with building products from that principle, and then we work with regulators, work with local regulations to make sure that we're meeting the laws in those spaces. Right? This is also an opportunity for us to really work with the regulators to figure out what's the right thing for users. This clearly in India, we have done this with NPCI, and like if you build the right thing for users, you can enable new features in a consented way, where users feel comfortable providing that information. Because as you said, like there's a second side of the coin, which is if I give you access to data, maybe I will get access to credit, right?
One is access to credit, but even beyond that, I think just better advice to me on how I'm managing my money and can I manage it smarter, better. You have such a lot of data and you're so good at search and analysis that actually that could be very powerful for consumers as well.
Absolutely. I think being able to derive insights from this data and then help them, say, making sure they save money. They can use the data, use their information in the right way. It becomes super important. And I think this is where some of the newer technologies that we have, right? Things like, for example, Google Wallet supports something called ZKP, which is called Zero Knowledge Proofs, which means your data is still private, but then we can use that data to convey information in a secure manner without really sharing the underlying bits. But it can then be used for getting access to new financial services or products, or just understand like, okay, this is how I should be thinking about how I'm spending and saving money.
Super. So given that you have a global lens and you have an opportunity to see different payment systems and innovations across different countries, what is it that you're most excited about right now in terms of one or two of the trends that you're seeing?
We can spend a long time kind of talking about it. I think.
So maybe we'll just take your two favorite ones right now.
And like I think you hinted a little bit at this, right? Like one of the challenges I think in the digital ecosystem today is fraud, is scams, right? And we see this in India, we see that at the global level. As digital commerce continues to grow, this is an area that we will actually have to solve. One way that I'm really excited about that we can solve this is the work that's going on in digital identity.
Right.
Like I think India has done a great job with Aadhaar, right? Really enabling every user to have a digital identity. And there are versions of this that are happening globally, right? Because if you really can attach identity to your payments, and again, do this securely in a private manner, you start kind of reducing the fraud pressure that actually exists because you can identify who the user is, right? This is like almost the original sin that people talk about for the web, that you don't have identity, you don't have payments built into the protocols. So when we are trying to do payments, which it's heavily regulated, KYC kind of stuff, you disconnect these two things. But with the innovation that is happening in digital identity, I think there is a big opportunity for us to really think about solving this in a new way, right? Things like 2FA becomes much simpler. So that's definitely one trend, and we're partnering very closely with regulators around the world, right? Like we're working with UIDAI, but we're working with EIDAS in Europe, or the central bank in Brazil, to really think about, okay, how does identity plug into these things? So that's definitely one area. The second area is, like, I think there have been enough sessions on this already, is around the agentic space, right? Like, as we think about how we move from a human buying something to an agent buying something, that fundamentally changes all the assumptions that we have made around how we make payments secure and safe and permissions, and how does each ecosystem player actually participate. So I think that transformation is going to happen here in the coming years, months. Sometimes the pace is kind of unknown at this point, but participating in that is definitely something that I'm super excited about.
Oh, super. So when do you think we might see some of these actually come to market, whether it's integrating identity or whether it's agentic commerce? And I know you've written a blog on it, and you're at the leading edge of thinking about the AP2 protocol and how that might enable that whole space. So do you want to just talk to us a bit more about that?
Sure. So to your first question, like, I think digital identity is happening now, right? It's almost already in the market, and it's slowly expanding, right? Even in the US, like, multiple states have digital driver's license that are available. In Europe, there is regulation that's coming that's going to enforce that digital identity be used for 2FA, which I think is going to be an inflection point. I think we'll see what we can do with Aadhaar as well to kind of reduce the cost of like in-person KYC by looking at some of these digital things. So I think that is essentially happening now, and it's going to happen at different pace in different markets, but it's a trend that's happening. On the agentic side, like, look, it is really a bet, right? The technology is changing so fast. And how users are using it is also changing, right? Like, as users discover the strengths of this technology, they are changing how they operate with it. So how often they end up kind of using agentic payments or asking their agents to buy stuff for them, we will see, right? Like, it may be that they start with simple stuff like order my milk, or they start for things like, hey, this thing is out of stock, go ahead and buy it when it's available. Like, I've been meaning to buy the Nintendo Switch for a while, and it's never in stock right now. So maybe if I could just get an agent to go buy it for me, I think that'd be great. I don't have to check for stock drops every day. To like more complex things that we can't really do easily today, right? Things like, I've now picked my travel, I've selected, my flights, my hotels and everything. I want to go book everything. Is there an agent I can just say, like, today we used human travel agents to actually do this. Could I tell a digital agent to go just buy my itinerary for me? And if you could do that, again, you work through the fraud and other pieces that could come, then actually it becomes super interesting. So I think some of those experiments are happening now. I think in the coming weeks and months, you will see products rolling out that will allow you to do these things. And then adoption will really decide like the path that these things will end up taking. One of the things we have done, to your earlier question about AP2, is create this agentic payment protocol. So as I mentioned, we move from a human buying something. So the human is always present in essentially giving permission to an agent buying something. In that world, who takes accountability for that particular transaction, right? Like there are multiple players in a transaction flow, from the user to the merchant. Now you have a shopping agent that is potentially doing the shopping for you. You have ecosystem players. There's an issuer, there is a partner, and each of them have a role to play. So in an agentic world, how do you make sure that the role is kind of clearly defined and there is clear liability of the transaction to the appropriate parties? So the agentic payment protocol is providing a generic framework to allow you to do that, right? And we worked with partners. There were more than 60 partners when we came out with the protocol. And since we launched it a few weeks ago, we've been continuing to work with more and more partners to kind of now starting to define the next level of detail, right? Because the protocol is generic enough to allow for lots of different types of data to kind of be passed to either the merchant or the network or the issuer. Now we need to get into okay, exactly what are the bits that need to fly? What are the use cases that need to be enabled? And here, the protocol also allows for not just a human instructing the agent to go buy something. It allows agents to pay other agents, right? That's the next level that I think you can imagine, that maybe there are multiple travel agents, software travel agents available to you, and you have your own personal agent that can talk to those software travel agents. Well, how is it going to pay the travel agent? So those are all pieces that we are just starting to kind of figure out, and we're looking at building some end-to-end kind of use cases to say, this is how the protocol can enable commerce in general. So we'll see how it evolves, but that's kind of the direction in which this is going.
And what about policy and regulatory adoption for something like that? Are you finding a lot of questions coming up, or is there excitement about enabling that?
I think
do you think we'll have different rules in different markets, or are you sensing that we might have a global protocol?
There is no such thing as global in payments. I think it's a very, you can build global products, but they are a very, very local game at the end of the day. And you know this really well. So I think it will vary by locale. I think you will have regulations, obviously. I think with NPCI, with some of the stuff they're thinking about with IoT, I think we're seeing that kind of evolve in India. I think more than regulators, I think regulators will play a big role. I think it's also the networks and the issuers who have to play a big role, because they take the liability for a lot of these things. So they have to play a big role of, well, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. So we're just, and that's why like we partnered with quite a few of those ecosystem players as well to make sure that this is something that they can support. So we'll see how it evolves. I think as it goes back to, well, fraud. And as users, can users trust this system? Because without trust, you won't actually see the adoption happening. So that's really what I think will be interesting in that space.
Yeah. And is it going to take the fun out of shopping and payments, or how are we going to get our new sources of fun in that world is something to think about, I guess.
Definitely. I think, well, I hope it doesn't take the fun. It takes out the mundane tasks out of shopping, right? You'll still get to do window shopping. You'll still get to explore the fun stuff. But then you don't have to,
you don't actually have to carry the bags home.
You don't have to carry the bags home, exactly. You can just get it shipped.
Super. So we still have a bit of time, so I don't know if there are some audience questions you want to take, or is there something that I've missed that you wanted to talk about or highlight?
I'm happy to take audience questions. I think we covered a lot of the stuff that, I think all the questions that you had, but I'm happy to take other questions as well.
So we do have time for a couple of audience questions if there are any. Okay, otherwise I'm going to go back and ask Stavan, how often do you use the payments apps in a day?
I use it
And what's your biggest frustration with using them?
So the payments apps, India again is very different than the global, right? Like in India, unfortunately, I don't have an Indian phone number, which means I can't set up any of my UPI. I ended up using my father-in-law's phone for like the 2 months I was here. And it was really fascinating to kind of see how UPI has really transformed from the shopkeeper like on the street all the way.
Yeah.
At the global level, I end up using Google Wallet a lot, and it's a day-to-day kind of activity because now, like with NFC payments really being pervasive, it makes it very, very easy. I think, in general, like the core basic aspect of paying, I think, is fairly straightforward. I think it's more of the management aspects, right? Like you're talking about, like how can these applications help me save money, right?
Yeah.
How can I actually manage my money a lot better? Understand where I'm spending my money.
Yeah.
And figure out, well, how do I optimize which card I'm using or which payment method I'm using? When should I use what? Like those are the things where we're just starting these journeys. I don't think we have solved those.
Yeah.
And I think if we could solve those better, I think we'll actually be in a much better place than where we are today. And I think users will find it a more delightful experience.
Yeah, I would certainly look forward to that. I have to say that I'm a big user of the GPay app, obviously. And when we were at Axis Bank, we thought we were trying to do stuff which was user-friendly from a payments perspective. But I think the GPay app is just so addictive because it keeps a great track and it organizes my information in terms of all my previous history of payments and makes it very easy for me to do repeat payments. I'm looking forward to a bit more analysis on that maybe going forwards. But just in terms of the actual payment itself, it's super easy.
Thank you. I'll thank the team for building a very intuitive experience, honestly.
And I think also some of the stuff that you've done around, the messaging to tell me that, okay, this is a payment you're doing which seems new. So bringing a little bit of friction where you think there could be risk, I think all of those have been great features. So.
Maybe I'll turn around and ask you a question. Like you've asked about like what are the big things that I'm excited about. I'm curious, what are the big things on the payments that you are excited about?
So two things actually. One is just there's so much of data that's being generated with payments. And as you said, the interesting thing is you can go to the sabzi wala around the shop and pay with GPI and they're not taking cash anymore. So I think that's been a big transformation. But how can the use of all of that data actually empower many more people? One, giving them access to responsible credit. So helping them get credit but not get overloaded with credit so that they have a debt capacity issue. And also actually just helping people manage their money smarter because it's interesting that advice is still complicated to get, whether it's just in terms of how you can be smarter about the use of your money or how you can be smarter about where you invest your money and how you save. So there's a lot that's happened in those spaces, but I think over the next year, a couple of years with AI, I think there can be a lot of transformation there and we can actually give simpler, safer, more reliable access to many more consumers. So this intersection of data and AI, I think I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think there's a lot we can do to build a very personalized experience, right? I think in a non-AI world, right, you end up with the lowest common denominator experience, which may not actually solve for each individual correctly. And we have done a lot with like the core ML models to actually get better at that. But I think with LLMs, you can actually really get to hyper-personalized experiences. And so we are super excited about how to kind of move things forward in that space as well.
And it's something that we've been talking about for the longest time, but I think we now have the tools and technology to make it happen. So yes, I'm not sure exactly when, but I think that could be hugely transformative.
Agreed.
So I think we're 3 minutes early. we can give back time. Yeah.
Right? Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a question.
Yes.
I guess we'll use the 3 minutes.
Sure, please. Yes, yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
So my question is that initially when money was basically started was to exchange commodities, right, to replace the barter system. Over a period of time, we have started managing money in a way where people have to incentivize to use a currency. Probably a GPay will have to incentivize a customer to keep using GPay. So will a ATM, so will a credit card. When did money become such a thing which needed to be incentivized? And now going forward, who's going to fund this incentivization? That's a very big question. Is people constantly going to fund offers for a customer with cashback? Or banks going to fund all these reward points that they do? Or the brands are going to keep funding it? Somebody has to fund it. And I work in partnerships, so it really becomes a question. Who's going to fund it? As a bank or the brand or like, aggregators like us? So that's the question. Why do we need to keep incentivizing a customer?
I think maybe the incentivization, this goes to about, has a few different reasons, right? Like one is to build affinity for a product, right? I think that's one aspect that I think all of us spend on is like, a lot of products have lots of capabilities, but how do you get users to even explore those capabilities? All of us have very limited time, and I think incentives actually help us at least pay attention to say, okay, maybe this is something I want to go explore, right? This is why advertising works, right? Like this is what brand building works. So a lot of the incentives are really about getting people exposure to a particular product, and then, yeah, well, once you have that, then maybe there are features that the user will find useful because they get access to credit or they get access to other financial services that can make their life easier. So that's where like money is the product, because money helps them kind of meet their day-to-day needs, meets them meet their desires in some sense. So I think a lot of the incentives are really there to say, look, here is the gamut of things that you can actually do with your money, and we are going to make it possible for you to do so. So that's the way I look at it.
If I may actually just add to that, it's also about, I think some of the incentives at least are also directed towards growing a particular type of merchant traffic, right? So it's not just the use of money, but how you're using that money that the incentives are being given for. And that, to go back to Stavan's point, is about advertising and share of mind.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our dignitaries on the dais. We'd request you to please come together for a group photo, please. Ma'am, please join us for a photograph.